We move on to our Seattle Kraken, our NHL hockey team. Over the past week, played 3 games, two of them against Pacific Division opponents. The first game being December 29th versus the Philadelphia Flyers, losing that game 3-2. Player of the game being defenseman Jeremy Lauzon with 1 goal, 1 point, a 1+-, 3 shots on goal, and 1 hit. December 30th versus the Calgary Flames, losing that game 6-4 in Captain Mark Giordano's first game against his former team. Giordano would be the player of the game for that game, actually, recording 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points, a 1+-, 2 shots on goal, 3 hits, and 2 blocks. Really filling up the stat sheet there for somebody who's 38. January 1st versus the Vancouver Canucks, losing that game 5-2. Player of the game would be Calle Jarnkrok with 1 goal, 1 point, 2 shots on goal, and 1 block. So Seattle's currently on a 5-game losing streak.
Yeah.
We're kind of back still in the situation where the team has a lot of defensive lapses. And somebody made a good point on Twitter. Twitter's good for something sometimes. Twitter's a very interesting space.
It's not the manners.
No. Somebody brought up the point that expansion teams tend to have little mistakes that guys create because they don't know each other that well, right? I mean, if you look at teams that are successful around all sports, I mean, you look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs have kind of built that up where they, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce,
Tyreek
Hill,
they've
kind of gelled. Yeah, Andy Reid, they've gelled that, right? I mean, chemistry is not always talked about enough. Where, I mean, you look at some teams that are like supposed to be super teams, they don't always work because they don't gel together, right? I mean, if you look at Golden State now, as much as I haven't been a fan of Golden State, just because I rooted for somebody specifically.
Ooh, Golden State's fire right now.
Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. I mean, those guys were all acquired via the draft, right?
Then their young pool's good.
Their young pool.
You got Gary Payton.
And so their work.
Gary Payton the second.
Which is crazy to me because I remember he went to Oregon State.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're looking at this, you know what I'm saying, right? These good teams, these teams that are consistent year in and year out, they have cores that they hold on to and they have chemistry. What is Seattle lacking?
We don't have that yet. I think
exactly.
We feel like we all got kind of a little bit excited and kind of jumped the gun, especially because you hear the hype around Vegas after their expansion draft.
Yep.
And so, we were kind of all like, oh yeah, we're going to be nice. Like first year in, and it's like, no, at the end of the day, team chemistry is important, and we're still like, yeah, no.
So that's a good point, and that's had to be reiterated. I mean, everybody looks at the Vegas situation and they think, oh yeah, we're gonna go out, we're gonna make it straight to the Stanley Cup. Totally different thing. I mean, the NHL hadn't had an expansion draft in years, so nobody knew how to prepare for it. I mean, the team that they picked their goaltender off of, who was a Stanley Cup winning goaltender, that team had 2 of them on their roster. It's hard to happen, and you've got to expose one of them. So, I mean, Vegas had such great circumstances for that, and they really fit into that. And now they're one of the teams that they do have chemistry. They've locked that up, and it's just a totally different situation. But, I mean, really, as someone who writes on these games, it kind of gets frustrating because it's the same stuff each night in and each night out. It's these offensive lapses, but there's like a variety pack that I can pick from of what's going on. Whether last game against Vancouver, it was turnovers behind the net. You can't turn over the puck right around your own net, right? Against the Flames, it was giving up response goals. You go up and get a goal, right? And you give one up 40 seconds after you've scored. Response stuff like that cannot happen. And it's just these continued issues that we're going to see with an expansion team. I get that. I know it's frustrating. Me and you both like winning, right? I don't think either of us enjoys losing things. So I get that. I get the frustration.
It just feels like such a culture thing at this point. There's a culture of Seattle. Like, damn, we just lose. Minus the Storm. Thank you.
Well, the Sounders have made the playoffs every year. They've been in the MLS. The Seahawks under 500 right now. I would use other words, but the Mariners, obviously, that history of not making the playoffs. I'm making the playoffs since I was 4 months old. I get that. The Seahawks had a good run, of making the playoffs, having winning seasons. It's just about Adam Larson, defenseman Adam Larson said this in a post-game press conference. He said that It's how this group responds to this adversity, and he says that we're going to come out of it better. It's just about when that response comes, and I don't know when that'll be.
I think this is still a good start because me not being a big hockey guy, I had very low expectations from an expansion team. I'm just like, okay, we got a team. This is cool. This is more just sports in Seattle. Always can be happy about that. Yep. And it's just like, all right, at the end of the day, these guys are all professional in their sports, and they're all good players because, it was an expansion draft. We all drafted players that they thought we were good.
Mm-hmm. These are all like, because there's a bunch of lines in hockey, right? Because they switch out players. It's like rotations. These are like a bunch of second line. Those are not bad guys. They're not like bottom of the bin, pick them out of nowhere. These are second and third line guys. They're not bad at all. So they're good. They're good caliber players.
I'm excited to see how we come out playing next season. Like I'm gonna be a little bit more concerned if this is like a problem we had like 2-3 seasons in.
There you go. Exactly.
It's only season 1,
and that's the thing too. Is Seattle has a good amount of cap space for this upcoming free agency. So
I gotta do some research.
Splash a little bit in there.
What's a good amount of cap space in hockey?
I just know that from what I've been told is that we've got a good amount of cap space and that we could be players there. It's just about how you use that, right? Because it doesn't mean anything if you've got the funds if you pay for low quality items. So that will be something to note, but I think you make a good point. If we're in this situation in year 3, year 4, maybe, then I'm concerned. Then it's really like, okay, was Dave Haxtell the right pick and coach? Did you make the right picks in the draft? Did you sign the right players in the offseason? That's when it comes into play. In injury news, which is never the best part of the show, on Monday, December 27th, it was announced that forward Brandon Tanev has suffered a season-ending ACL injury. He recently had successful surgery and has already begun rehabbing with Kraken trainers. So that's a good sign, working on the road to rehab. But the Kraken lose a fan favorite and a forward there for the season, as well as on the 27th, Mason Appleton was placed on the COVID-19 protocol list. On January 1st, the day of the Vancouver game, defenseman Jeremy Lauzon was placed on the COVID list prior to that game, obviously making him unavailable for that game. And then January 3rd, center Alex Wenberg was placed on the COVID-19 list. And the Kraken did have a full practice, and the only players missing were Wenberg, who's on the COVID list, and Jaden Schwartz. Yes, thank you. Good. And Appleton, who was on the COVID list, and Jaden Schwartz, who's dealing with an upper body injury. So a full practice there really gives you a chance to.
COVID's making sports more interesting. I will say that. It's going to be weird when COVID's not a problem, because if you look at this just professional sports, like wide NBA, NHL, everything, a lot of players be out because of COVID nowadays. And it's like you really got to have depth on your team, and it kind of adds like a whole different variable because, you're dealing with professional athletes and they're like their mid-20s. They going out to the club, they flexing, they doing all this. Like they're not being safe.
No.
So it's just crazy to see, like, this is such a big factor. It's gonna be weird. Like, hopefully 2-3 years was not an issue.
And you bring up a good point. Watching the Sunday Night Football game, they talked about that. It's like this makes the playoffs a little bit more interesting. Making a Super Bowl run. I don't know. What if the Chiefs get a strain after their? I don't know if they'll lock up the 1 seed, but what if the Chiefs, they get hit by it?
Yeah.
Who's your favorite in the AFC? It's just what if the Packers, Aaron Rodgers, take him out of the NFC Championship game? Jordan Love, what happens? So that brings up a good point. And I mean, it brings a question. If you could give me some short idea, I mean, are we going to be dealing with this next season?
It's like,
if we look at it like summer and beyond, because I mean, early season, in the beginning of 2022, still dealing with it. I mean, if we somehow make some miraculous push over the summer, get people vaccinated, get boosters out there, I mean, are we still looking at this as a problem in the fall, the winter? I mean, I don't know if we're out of the woods yet.
I don't know. I feel like it's been an interesting problem. It's nice to see like NBA teams really like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
10-day contract.
Yeah, just to who.
Don't know how Jamal Crawford hasn't been brought back yet, but
we'll see. I don't know. I keep on seeing people talking about that.
I mean, Lance Stephenson's back. So, but yeah, I mean, it brings up a good point, and I'd like to not deal with it, but it does make things interesting, certainly. And it's a good point you said that, because as we get to team news here, the NHL reintroduced the taxi squad. It allows a reserve squad of up to 6 players to be on hand due to the rise of COVID cases. And so far, the Kraken have brought up goaltender Joey Decord and forward Cole Lind to that taxi squad. On December 30th, the team recalled Cole Lind from the taxi squad for the game against Calgary, and the team placed for Jaden Schwartz on its day-to-day list with an upper body injury that he's still dealing with here in the third. So we have postponements again. I know we've had some postponements of Kraken games. I mean, really for the past few weeks. The NHL postponed the January 4th game of the Islanders against the Kraken, and then the January 6th game of the Senators and the Kraken. So Seattle now has 7 games to reschedule. Most likely all of them will be placed in February, as the NHL will not have players in the Olympics. So that schedule of only having 2 games in February will change, as I'm sure they'll put all 7 of those games in February. So with that being said, as we look ahead here, this graphic is outdated. As we look here, the Kraken record sits at 10 wins, 17 losses, 3 overtime losses, resulting in 23 points. 10 times 2 brings you to 20. 3 times 1 brings you to 23. They sit at 8th in the Pacific Division still, and their only matchup looking ahead, as you can avoid that Ottawa matchup, is January 10th at the Colorado Avalanche with a 6 p.m. puck drop. So